Hello, everybody, and good evening. I'm Don Arleth, and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. Since Donald Trump's inauguration as U.S. president, some say the post-World War II world order has fundamentally changed. The United States seems to be pursuing an agreement with Russia to end the war with little thought as to how to cement enduring peace and a lasting peace for that matter. Europe has been left scrambling to define its own future security. The notion that the U.S. is a reliable guarantor of European security has been fundamentally shaken to the core. Today, European leaders are in a meeting in Brussels to try and define the scope of how to ensure the continent's own security while continuing to assist Ukraine. And now joining me to discuss what can be achieved is Professor of Political Science at the University of Wrocław, Karolina Borońska-Hryniewiecka. Hello, and thank you very much for joining me on World Talks today.
Pleasure is mine, as always.
Yes, now, looking at what we've seen since Donald Trump's inauguration, we have this emergency summit, we had this crazy meeting in the Oval Office on Friday. Do you see a fundamental shift in transatlantic relations since Donald Trump has been sworn in? And do you think that that is the main focus today, basically in Brussels?
Well, definitely, I will not surprise anybody saying that, yes, there is a massive shift. It's ongoing. It's unpredictable, and probably the second adjective is even worse because we don't know what is going to come next. I think that today's meeting is basically a conclusion, kind of a fruit of all the bad and good feelings that have been present in transatlantic relations over the last week. This has been a true sinusoid, starting from pretty constructive efforts of Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer, and later, obviously, the scandalous meeting that took place in the Oval Office with Zelenskyy, and then obviously the facts that have followed. And by the facts, I mean the freezing or withdrawal of the US military aid. And we can see it already in Rzeszów in Poland. And also later, something also very problematic, which is stopping to share intelligence. So this all had to happen, probably had to happen for the European Union as a political actor to awaken 100% and be ready to act. And basically, this meeting today is a fruit of all these reflections of Emmanuel Macron, of the UK, of Donald Tusk as well, to stop expecting any new developments from Washington, but really play on our own playground and focus on what EU can do and how fast it can do it. So this Rearm Europe package is a very substantial and concrete step, I think. So hopefully it will be accepted just any minute now.
Just a few years back, Emmanuel Macron was talking about how Europe really needs to step up for its own defense. It needs to integrate the countries of Europe more in terms of defense. And everybody kind of, well, they either brush this off or laugh this off. Do you think he was right? Do you think he's being his thoughts back then are now being verified? And do you think that Europe can bring it together and rise to the challenge, if you will?
Well, I've lived in France for 7 years, and I've been witnessing Macron's intellectual initiatives on many levels. And I have to say that it's an ambivalent leader because domestically, he has a very low acceptance rate at the moment. And we know he's been struggling with creating stable government, etc. But on the European international scene, he has been always, since he assumed power, a very strong defender of European strategic autonomy. And I don't think that when he was talking about it several years ago at Sorbonne and even last year during the war already, talking about getting a grip in economic terms, competitiveness terms, to invest our savings, European savings in Europe, not in US. I don't think he envisaged that it will come to a point where we will be actually discussing the same things, but in a very different geopolitical context. So I think he was a visionary in this sense, and I think that he's now even maybe more enjoying the confirmation of his leadership. And I think that thanks to Macron, we can express things that other leaders are unable to express. Yesterday, his appeal to the nation, this the State of the Union address, was viewed by 15 million French people. And as much as he doesn't have this domestic support, his address received pretty positive rating. And he basically said everything that we think deep inside, is that the US is becoming as unpredictable that we cannot rule out a situation in which US will become our not an ally, but an opponent. And this is really a shaking a statement. But we have to take it into account. At the same time, we have to remember that we're dealing with a very delicate situation because these people in US are unpredictable. And on the one hand, we want to keep them still as allies. We want to save the NATO as coherence and capability to act. But we really don't know and have no guarantees that if anything had happened today on the eastern flank, whether the US would react.
That's a very good point. Now, the leaders are meeting in Brussels today for this extraordinary meeting. What do you think is going to be the most significant development of this meeting? You know, it seems like week in and week out, we have all these leaders gathering together. They've been doing this now for over 3 years since the full-scale Russian invasion. And, well, it seems like we've taken actually a few steps back here in Europe when it comes to finally rising to the challenge and realizing that our own security needs here in Europe need to be handled by ourselves. So what are you expecting to come from this summit?
Well, we know, and it's not going to be a big surprise, that the priority of today is to sign a joint declaration, conclusion of the summit, endorsing this 5-point plan that was laid out by Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, just 2 days ago. And we already know that this 5-point plan is aimed at rearming EU, which means boosting its own production capabilities in defense sector, financing capabilities, self-defense capabilities, and all of that we have to take into account while we say that Europe is able and capable of doing that. And as Donald Tusk today very rightly pointed out, and I'm grateful for that narrative, and I will explain why, Europe is going to win this arm race with Russia, and it's going to win any conflict of this sort with Russia because we are more powerful in terms of military capabilities, economic capabilities, financial capabilities, and also the democratic strength and cooperation, but we really have to truly operationalize it and believe it. So in the state of peace, in the state of the American big brother there, ensuring Europe a security, everybody in Europe was comfortable with the status quo. Now we know that we really have to start acting fast. So these 5 points, basically, they are 5 different leverages, or levers, if you like, to mobilize a lot of money from public investments, from private investments, from loans, and from different, even EU budget and cohesion fund, which has never been used for that, is going to be made very flexible, and it's a historical move, right? We also see historical shifts in different member states. Look at Germany. Just a few days ago, we have had this historical announcement by the leader of CDU, Merz, and of SPD, so 2 biggest parties, who are going to legislate on changing the constitution in order to make the fiscal rules more flexible, so that it's called debt break. something that was keeping Germany always on the side of savings, especially in defense. So now Germany is going to go, large in terms of defense spending, increasing its per capita GDP spending on defense. This is the history since the Second World War. It's never happened before. We have to notice that. We obviously also have veto players like Orban, but I think that this is a minor problem at the moment. He can be bypassed. He doesn't have to be listened to. He doesn't deserve that.
Well, let's hope that the political will is there this time for real, because the challenge is immense before Europe at the moment. I'd like to thank you very much, Professor of Political Science from the University of Wrocław, Karolina Borońska-Hryniewiecka. Thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes this edition of World Talks. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.